Last week, Wednesday, Sexyy Red took over NXT and she's coming back for more. We're going to talk about everything she was involved in and more on this week's WrstlXtra. Stay tuned.
Yo, this is WrstlXtra. I'm your boy, A Dazzle, the Black Wrestling Advocate, always joined by my trios team, the House of Black, the real House of Black, Mex, the WrestleManiac, if you will, yeet. And of course, the omnipresent professor, the wise man that is Gerard Bonner. Guys, I'm surprised that Gerard isn't here shaking his dreads after everything that we saw last week.
Oh my gosh.
When Sexyy Red made an appearance on NXT, we were here talking about it last week, the possibilities, the possible chaos, and all the rest of it, a little excitement, a little anxiety. But I think I can honestly say for all three of us, and I'll get all your specifics in a second, I think I can say that we've all come away with more positive than we can negative following Sexyy Red's appearance on NXT. Gerard, I will come to you first. What was your whole expectation of Red, and how did you come away from NXT afterwards?
Well, my first exposure to her was courtesy of our friends at WWT Live, who just randomly played full song Pound Town. And when I heard that song, I just was like, oh, so that was my impression of Sexyy Red. And I was just like, I don't know what we're about to get here. Now, I was on Twitter, it proved to be a wrestling fan, or at least so we could see. Come to find out, she had included, obviously, Shawn Michaels' Sexy Boy in several of her songs. So for her, this was a very, very big deal. It was a brilliant move. It was done very well. Very, very well. By far, one of the best celebrity presentations on WWE television, or quite frankly, in pro wrestling in modern times. She's not overused. She was put in segments where she wasn't expected to be like a special guest referee or a general manager or anything like that. She was just Sexyy Red. She was a man who happens to be a wrestler who was utilized in the right places, whether it was, the start of the show and the revealing of the new North American Championship belt, a couple of pullaways, which was pretty cool for her. Then, of course, her being involved in the entrance in the main event with Trick Williams and Javon Evans. That was a match made in heaven, and I didn't know that we really needed that. But it was absolutely so. By and large, I'm here for it. Her being the host of Battleground after what happened last week, I think will be great. And I've got 4 words: in sexy trust. I did. The only other thing I'll say is, my God, I would have wanted to be the ring alarm on Wednesday morning at the House of Booker T.
Yeah. Next, what were your thoughts on the whole Sexyy Red in NXT last week?
Yeah, I think Gerard said it all really. Like, I think there was some apprehension from some of us that kind of obviously, you don't even need to know her music per se. You could just listen to like one song and think, okay, this is what we're in for, sort of thing. And I think what we saw was her placed very well in segments that we probably could have assumed that she was going to be placed very well. But then again, like Gerard said, she was used very well. It was even fun to hear I think it was one of these WWE digitals or backstage things where Shawn Michaels even spoke on, there was like some apprehension on, putting her out on live TV, given her lyrics and everything and stuff. But he said, she was a darling. She's very sweet. I think, you know, she's a fan, so that helps as well, that she has a level of respect for the business. And, you know, clearly had brokered a deal to do the NXT Battleground beforehand anyway. But I'm glad that, you know, Wednesday night went well. So it's like, yeah, let's give it to her as well. She's earned it, sort of thing at this point. Because if Wednesday didn't go well and that was still the case, then yeah, it would have probably been few and far between what we saw her on Battleground. But now, you know, she could probably still have some decent level of involvement without kind of overshadowing the stories that they're telling. Again, I think it just kind of stretches to, you know, our influence in the culture seeping into professional wrestling. Was it even the following night or 2 nights later, we saw Saweetie at the his promotion that they had in LA. Like, I just thought, you know, what's she doing there? But right now, how can we question it? It all makes sense. It all ties together. So yeah, it's a win overall, I reckon.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking to that whole influence thing, obviously we mentioned this last week when we saw Mayweather at Double or Nothing. You know, we've seen all sorts of influences over the last few weeks, let alone the last year or two. But just in the last few weeks, we've seen a lot of stuff going on. When it came to Sexyy Red on NXT last week, you know, again, we had our apprehensions, but it was done as best as it possibly could. I think it was nice that she revealed the new North American Championship, had that little minor tussle in the ring. But then for me, it was perfection, kind of doubling her with Trick Williams and Javon Evans. It worked out perfectly. They did the little shaky dreads in the middle of the match, which was amazing. And then, of course, you know, she had a part to play in the outcome of the match as well, by kind of helping out and taking the championship that Coffee was about to use to probably smash Trick Williams in the head, and you know, the same thing that we see quite often. But it worked out nicely, and then her involvement in Battleground is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how they do that. Do you have any idea how she could be used, or what it could be? Apart from just hosting, you know, it's just not going to be her saying hello and then she disappears. There's going to be some level of, you know, something else to it. Any ideas what that could be?
My initial guess is that she might present the North American Championship to whoever the winner is. That stands to make sense for sure. We don't know what Trick Williams will or won't be doing. We might get that particular part based on what happened last week. So I'm not sure what other parts she would be involved in. It probably would be a stretch to include a performance or lyrics, but it's pay-per-view, so I don't know. I think they'll probably stick in safe spaces like the hosting spot. Yeah, so I'm imagining it would be representing the North American Championship to whomever the winner is, and maybe some involvement in maybe the intro of the match as well.
Cool. I mean, I personally think it's going to be something very, very similar to what you said, and also what happened last week. You know, obviously hosts, as I said, they never just say something and disappear. There'll be some kind of backstage interaction with someone. The North American Championship, the Women's North American Championship will you know, have a part to play in the whole thing as well. So I think it's going to be as simple as that. Does she get involved in the match in any way? Nah. Okay, maybe not that then. But yeah, it's going to be intriguing. I'm not going to say I'm excited necessarily, but it's going to be intriguing to see how they do it, what they do. But moving on to the other things that happened on NXT, because that show was probably one of the best NXTs we've seen in a while. It was absolutely phenomenal. So following the match, the main event, Lash Legend came in to confront Trick Williams about who attacked Noam Dar and Oro Mensah. The lights went out. I thought Undertaker and Malachi Black were going to appear, but then we saw Trick being beat down by none other than Ethan Page. Mex, Did you expect at any point at all that Ethan Page was going to turn up in NXT?
Not at all. Not at all. Didn't see it coming. Obviously, we knew he had left AEW, but I just didn't really see the fit. Like, I didn't really see how he could kind of come into, what they are currently doing, where they are clearly, opting for the younger stars of on the roster that they're developing. It's sprinkled with a couple of more experienced guys here and there, but I definitely thought like it was more of a out of the blue move. I kind of, him coming in is more akin to like almost when they signed Bobby Roode, when NXT, when Bobby Roode showed up. I feel it's something like that. And obviously he didn't have much success. Looking back on it, what him and Scorpio Sky did in AEW was his best stretch of stuff, really. And that, depending on who you ask, didn't really hit. But I think that, to put it kindly, I think with MJF over there, he struggled to find his feet. That was like his closest person he was always being compared to. NXT don't necessarily have an MJF type. So right. I feel he can slot right in there now. He could be a top guy. He could be a narcissist and all of this kind of stuff. He'll provide definitely a good challenge to Trick Williams. I think, does he beat Trick Williams whenever if they do kind of go at it relatively soon? I don't know, and I don't know how I'd feel about it if he did. Is he like a big enough name that you would say, well, you give him the title because they're going on to this new TV deal? I would argue no. Like, he wouldn't necessarily move the needle like that. Great moment, great roster addition. I just don't know how it will hit, but I guess we'll wait and see.
Interesting. Because I believe it was Bully Ray who mentioned on Busted Open Radio, like the next day, I believe it was, saying that whole thing was kind of over, the whole Ethan Page was overshadowed by Jordan Grace's appearance. We'll get onto that in a second. But, when I've seen that, my thought was, I actually don't think it was. It's crazy to think, but I actually don't think it was. And the reason why I say that is because for me, when someone like an Ethan Page or the likes of Lexus King, come onto NXT, yes, they weren't big names before they turned up, but when they have turned up, it's a big thing. And I think that's the power of NXT, or the position NXT is in, to where I'm actually quite excited to see Ethan Page. For me, he's always been the kind of guy that's got, always had a lot of potential, but never reached it, or no one's ever known what to do with him, whether it's his fault, whether it's booking, all sorts of different things. And like you said, the whole thing with Scorpio Sky, it kind of could have gone somewhere, but something was missing and it just didn't. For me, his actual best run was in Impact, when he was with Josh Alexander and they were tag team champions, that kind of thing. But he's always been the same guy, and that's not a bad thing. I think that's a very good thing for him. And as you said, there's no one like that in NXT. You can maybe argue Lexus King is kind of slightly like that, but it's a little bit more character, whereas Ethan Page just seems like that's him more natural. You know what I mean? So I think for me, if we're going to kind of do this whole thing of is he a big enough name, blah, 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 great surprise. And I think that's enough to be a challenge for Trick Williams. It's nice to have the unknown. And I think that's what's intriguing about this, is that it's unknown. We've seen, months before, Dijak and probably a Joe Gacy and all these kind of guys who we feel as though they could have been, NXT championship contenders. But to have someone that we haven't seen in NXT, I think that adds to the intrigue. And then after that, there's time to build him to be a bigger star. They're looking you know, they've got this TV deal that begins in October. More than enough time to raise the star power of Ethan Page, or to put more time and effort into him and all that kind of stuff for him to be one of those guys when we get to October. So I'm excited. I'm intrigued. Great surprise. It had everyone talking and actually wasn't overshadowed by Jordynne Grace. Jordynne Grace turned up on NXT. Roxanne Perez is looking for a new number one contender. Ava's come out, said, here's your contender. Boom. Jordynne Grace comes out. Gerard, how did you feel watching that? And like everyone else, we are all excited and making up all these different dream matches and blah, blah, blah between NXT, TNA. What are your thoughts on this whole thing and the possibilities that could come from it?
It's very funny. I think this time last week, Mex was talking about how he was reserving his answers for things because he had just done a whole video for it. I literally just did a video about this, which will be out maybe later today or tomorrow. But in terms of how I felt, I was shocked, absolutely shocked that Jordynne Grace showed up with the TNA Knockouts Championship on NXT, challenging for the NXT Championship. It is the true forbidden door. And I think the ironic part of this is for all that AEW did to try to create this forbidden door scenario, WWE just did it. And they did it in a way that none of us saw coming. And there's a lot of history being made in it. So we now have, for the first time ever, now we'd seen obviously a couple of years ago when Mickie James was in the Royal Rumble, you know, the TNA Knockouts Championship, then the Impact Knockouts Championship on WWE, but it's never been on WWE television. So this took things to a completely different level. And then the idea that they're having this match on a PLE in Vegas. Vegas has already played home to 2 TNA pay-per-views this year alone. Yep. So it's kind of their second or third home. They got a bunch of homes right now. It's amazing to me, and I'll just throw this out there. Jordynne Grace wins the NXT Championship. It's happening this Saturday or this Sunday. It is happening. Brace yourselves. It's absolutely happening. And here's why. Because I mentioned the whole forbidden door situation where AEW has not done the forbidden door concept correctly. The WWE will. AEW in every one of their partnerships, be it with Impact, New Japan, or what have you, it's always been the AEW party coming out on top. Always. Whether it was them taking the Impact Championship or, you know, Tanahashi losing the world title, like all those things, or even Moxley is the current IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. There is no point where AEW is doing the kind of business with these other companies that says this is even partnership. For the WWE, for the only way this partnership works with Impact or with TNA is for Jordynne Grace to win that championship. She wins that championship, takes it on to TNA television. It is we're now in brand new territory. You hear me? We're in new territory. The only time a WWE championship has appeared on another brand was when Alundra Blaze took the title in '95. When that title was defunct and threw to the garbage in WCW. Now we're seeing Jordynne Grace champion this in TNA. And now somebody's got to go from WWE over to TNA to go get the title back. It writes itself. And Triple H and Shawn Michaels like to do business for real. They were real students of the Attitude Era because they lived it. This is the stuff they lived for. I'm telling you now, mark my words, this time next week, we're talking about Jordynne Grace or Jordan 2 belts or Juggernaut 2 belts. Or,
it's
going to be special. It's gonna be really special.
It's gonna be, oh, put it this way, Jordan 2.0. There you go. That's a good one for you.
And it could make it next week. It really could.
Oh, for sure. I think it should. Most definitely. I know that they've made a big thing of obviously it being at the UFC arena, and the likes of Lola Vice and Shayna Baszler, who are students of MMA and have histories in MMA. That being a big thing, but surely that match has to be the main event if they're going down the road of Jordynne Grace taking that belt. Has to.
Firstly, I'm very happy you guys said that, because I was about to say, well, it's all well and good to see her, but obviously then the fear is she loses to Roxanne Perez, which is great for Roxanne Perez, but then yes, we're in an AEW Impact / situation where it's like, okay, who's really benefiting from this?
Right.
This is NXT. It's not their main, WWE Women's Championships or World Heavyweight Championship for the women. Like, they can afford to do this. Roxanne has nothing to prove with this title. To the whole point that she's looking for competitors, that Jordynne Grace walks through this forbidden door, if you like. Yeah, I would open up the show, and I didn't see this coming, but I'm running with it now because you guys have said it, and I'm all for it. I would open up the show with maybe having Jordynne Grace and Roxanne Perez, and she wins in an opening match, and it's almost like crisis. Like, okay, right, we'll go on with the pay-per-view, but as the like of Vic and Booker do, especially Booker, because that's Roxanne's his girl. It's almost like we've lost our title. Like, someone's died. Like, we've lost our title to TNA, sort of thing. What are we gonna do about it? Really kind of somber tones like throughout the pay-per-view as they kind of recap as they do. And then the story becomes almost like I don't want to say bullying, because that can go down another road, but almost like bullying of Roxanne. Like, how could you lose our title? The kind of women's roster, go off on her and stuff. True. To be honest, this might be good timing as to why they brought in the North American title for the women.
Very true. Another reason why they can afford to lose the NXT.
Another reason why they can afford to lose.
Wow.
And then it's almost like a situation where they're blaming Roxanne. It's like people are going over there trying to win it back, can't get it done until maybe they bring in someone else that can, or someone rises up through the ranks. But yeah, I'm sold. Do it. Do it.
It's gotta happen.
Let's go.
I'm here for it.
With all the different things that we've kind of just lined out there, it has to happen. As Gerard pointed out, you've got the whole thing where AEW kind of haven't done the Forbidden Door thing justice, in the sense where it's always them that go over, and no one from New Japan has kind of gone over, apart from signing deals with AEW. When you put it like that, it just sounds so bad. It sounds so bad. It's almost like their whole point was to poach people. I'm sure that wasn't.
It's how the company started.
Plan, but it's
how companies started.
Very true. Very true. You've got that. As we said, as Mex just said, the whole storyline possibility of Roxanne being blamed, or her going into this other difficult mindset of I've lost my title again and trying to regain it and all the rest of it. It's another way to do that. And then this new North American Women's Championship, they'll have a Women's Championship on the show, even when the main one's gone. So it's not like, and we've said it week in and week out, any of those ladies could win it, because that division right now is so competitive and so strong. So it's not like, for example, a Sol Ruka, who has, before this whole North American Championship has been announced, probably saw her as a contender to Roxanne. I'm not now thinking, she's gone for this North American Championship, so now she's dropped her level. It doesn't feel like that at all. Doesn't feel like that in the slightest. So they can afford to let this thing go somewhere else and be used. It's crazy. And LA, as you said, Gerard, it's where Impact was housed for a while. They did a load of shows, not just the PLEs or the pay-per-views or whatever, they did a lot of their weekly television there for a long time. I believe around this time last year, actually, did a lot of their shows there. So they might have people sitting, waiting in the wings, and who knows who comes out at Battleground? Who knows? Talking of all of the, go for it.
Kevin's just put here in the chat that I just seen. Don't forget, next TNA pay-per-view, Jordan Grace is going to have an open challenge.
Exactly. Exactly. There was that as well, and I was going to mention that. So I was just about to mention there's that as well. So I believe is it Against All Odds? I think it's the next one.
That's the name of it. We'll see.
I think it's that one. So yeah, it was announced a few days ago that there's going to be an open challenge, and so amidst all the speculation of dream matches, we've now got legitimate, reason to kind of make up another dream match in our head. Who faces Jordan Grace Against All Odds, or in this open challenge? If we're thinking that she will also hold the NXT Women's Championship, what are the possibilities here?
Two names come to mind immediately.
Go for it.
Natalya Neidhart.
Maybe
they could
send not a bad one.
Trinity back over there.
Not a bad choice. Not a bad choice.
Trinity in the rematch against Jordan for the NXT Women's Championship hits much.
Hits nice.
Oh my God!
Hits nice. Hits.
I mean, it's funny. I was rewatching their entrances, and the commentators immediately put it over that Jordan just defeated her for the TNA Knockouts Championship. So the history's already been acknowledged. You realize, as if WWE wasn't already cooking, and if TNA wasn't already cooking, these two entities cooking like this together. And then my next question becomes, what happens if we're not just talking about women's championships?
And that is what my next question was about to be, because I'm thinking, obviously, we've seen when Jordan Grace came out the next day, the internet was just an absolute madness. And it wasn't just NXT, TNA stars getting involved. Drew McIntyre's chimed in.
Yep.
Matt Hardy is currently been appearing on TNA, but not contracted to TNA. He's chimed in. We've had interaction with Joe Hendry and Xavier Woods.
Yep.
Moose was who responded to Drew McIntyre. What other? Okay, here's my first question. Actually, would it be lesser of a big thing if it was just TNA and NXT? Does the whole WWE roster have to get involved in this for it to be a big thing? I know if everyone gets involved, it's a bigger thing, but does it have to happen for WWE to get involved for it to be memorable or iconic or whatever? Does it have to be?
I say respectfully that it should be NXT and TNA, because I feel if it's TNA and like main roster WWE, now we're entering the realm of maybe AEW and Impact, and like these guys need to go over the TNA people. Unless obviously there's like some more fringe characters on the main roster that could go over there, still have a big impact and do stuff, whether it's putting on great matches and losing. Even AJ Styles, I'm actually not happy with the way the AJ Styles thing went. I thought that should have been a prime opportunity. Like, if I'm not getting a chance here, I'm gonna go to TNA and win the title. Like that's what I would have done.
We'll get to that.
But like, I think NXT is nice because remember, which they have remembered throughout all of this is developmental. So it's almost now like when we have like, okay, I'll make it like akin to like our sports here. When we have football, you might be an academy player, like an 18, 19, 20-year-old trying to break into the first team. You go on loan. So it's almost like you're going on loan to go and play big time football, men's football, to get that experience as well. And it helps shape, especially the influx of people in NXT now, which is mainly from, other, universities, American football, any other sport, but not wrestling is, so it's giving them another experience of wrestling elsewhere. It's like WWE almost controlling an indie without using the word controlling. You see what I mean? Like how they had Evolve and stuff like that. They'll send them to Evolve. So it's almost like, giving them exposure elsewhere, learn some other things elsewhere, go to head with other people outside of who you've come up and trained with. Another experience before you make it to that main roster. I think NXT and TNA is the right level to do it.
Gerard, what are your thoughts?
I definitely think that it's already memorable, right? Like it doesn't have to be one for SmackDown to make this memorable. It's already memorable. It's already historic because we're not dealing with NXT 2.0 right now. We're dealing with an established NXT that has built stars that, we know there are a number of people that would match well. And particularly when we're talking about the women's division, it has historically been said the two best women's divisions in wrestling are TNA and NXT. So this makes sense. This doesn't feel like a lower level kind of comparison when you're certainly dealing with the two best women's divisions. If we get into the men's division, I still think there's something to be said because the men's stars in NXT can cook. I mean, you potentially look at the Rascals battling each other, with Wes Lee on the NXT side of things and Trey Miguel, on the TNA side. There are a number of ways that this can work. I mean, my Lord, if Moose really wants to be challenged, him and Obafemi, like, what? What? We've got possibilities. We've got some real possibilities here. The TNA tag team champions, the system against Gallus. Like we've got some real possibilities that can cook here. So I think this can really, really, really work. And I get the feeling that, this new regime really wants to do good business and they're not going to let some of the petty things that stood in the way in times past stand in the way of some good business happening. So I say strap on your seatbelts, family. We are on to something special. And it just makes you, I was looking at the calendar and I was wondering because the next pay-per-view, which I think it's against all odds, I just looked at it. It's against all odds, happens to be the day before Clash at the Castle. And I thought to myself, now, Chicago is an international airport. Now, I don't know that the flights would get there in time unless you already have people headed over there. So possibilities are wide open. And if this goes well, what does this do Mania weekend?
True. I mean, come on. We had, in past WrestleMania weekends, we had the whole Worlds Collide thing. We all kind of, had our heads going when we saw Jordan Grace come out at the Royal Rumble. We were all expecting some kind of Worlds Collide before WrestleMania. We could see, and hopefully we do see, a Worlds Collide thing happen very soon, have its own show, or the rest of it not be necessarily combined with maybe a SummerSlam or one of the big. It's got its own weekend, or when I say weekend, I don't mean a whole few days, but it's got its own space in a weekend. Well, that's a strong possibility as well.
Well, we may have gotten a taste of that this past WrestleMania weekend at Bloodsport. It was Shayna Baszler and Masha Slamovich, which makes you wonder, if this thing goes past the Jordan Grace space. They're in LA in this underground situation. What say Slamovich doesn't show up? Like you got all kinds of possibilities. This could turn into a TNA takeover of sorts. So I think we have great potential for something very, very special. And for those who were not watching wrestling during the Attitude Era and didn't understand the crossover that could potentially happen and all the things, you're about to get something better with TNA and NXT.
Going from something that you said, Gerard, you said about WWE wanting to do real business. Back in the day, it was all about, the territories thing and whatnot. And this is why Vince McMahon stayed well away from, giving any shine to any other company and all this kind of thing. And I think for me, we're now in a space in WWE where, like you said, it's about business. Mm-hmm. It's about spreading the word more than it is about anything else. It's not about getting one over on the other company and all that kind of stuff. Yes, we hear, the rumblings between WWE and AEW, blah, blah, whatever. But for me, it's definitely about just doing great business and getting the word out even more and just making money. How, let's do the dream thing and make money that way. You know what I mean? So, we can get the likes of, champion versus champion, Trick Williams versus Moose. We can see Javon Evans versus Leon Slater. All these types of things could happen. And it doesn't have to be a one-night thing. It can be over time. It can turn into maybe a bragging rights type of situation, or Worlds Collide bragging rights type of situation. There are so many possibilities, and I can't see WWE dropping the ball in that respect in terms of giving us what we want, and and not being, unfortunately, how the AEW Forbidden Door situation has kind of panned out. Mm-hmm. Again, to go back to my own question, to answer my own question about whether WWE should get involved, I don't think they need to at all. I would rather them not. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I would rather them not. I think it's better for TNA. I think it's better for NXT. And at the end of the day, it's, as I've mentioned already, they've got this whole thing where they're moving to the CW in October. NXT needs to build themselves up. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be about WWE. They've done it. They've been selling out shows and the pay-per-views and killing records and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't need to be them. NXT needs this now. So possibilities are endless. We might have to do a show next week, for just this and work out all this booking and blah. It's endless, literally endless. Mm-hmm. And a Rascals reunion, Jesus.
Yeah.
It's that part for me. It's that part for me that I'm more excited about more than anything else. I ain't gonna lie. It's just gonna be interesting if they did it with Wesley being the fan favorite that he is, with the Rascals going on a tear and being Rascals right now. What would the dynamic be? It would just be interesting to see how they tackle that part as well. We mentioned, we're talking about TNA. Mex has kind of mentioned it very quickly as well. We saw AJ Styles on SmackDown, all this talk of he's gonna retire, and he had the whole suit on, and he was saying, thank you to a few people. I was gonna say goodbye. He didn't say goodbye to anyone actually. He just said thank you to a few people. Had Cody Rhodes in the ring. He said if I'm gonna go out, all of that stuff, and then boom, he pulls what is now called the Mark Henry. I love that it's called that. And the fake retirement speech attacked Cody Rhodes. Mex, I'll go back to you. Give me your first thought on how this went for you, and also how important is it that it's called the Mark Henry?
I think on that part, I think that's very important. I'm glad that he obviously done his thing in the ring, but what makes people of legendary status, of heroes and icons, is when they have these moments within professional wrestling, and that is the moment. The minute anyone comes out to return, whether they're wearing a pink suit, a pastel colored suit, any time now that someone comes out to retire, it's like, oh, are they going to pull a Mark Henry on us? Right. So, before this situation on SmackDown, this was written in history. Like he's confirmed himself. The fact that AJ was wearing a blue pastel suit to come and do this, and kind of beat for beat, him and Cody lifted each other's arms and did the whole shebang, just like Cena and Mark Henry done it. It was good in terms of what that segment was. But yeah, just going back to what I was saying, I just felt like I was happy that Nick Aldis kind of pushed back AJ Styles and was like, yeah, you can't just get another opportunity. He never said you couldn't work for one, which AJ does. That's what he seemingly doesn't want to do. He doesn't want to work for it. He just wants to get it. But yeah, I feel like with this Forbidden Door opening, literally the minute I saw Jordan Grace turn up, I was just thinking, okay, who else could go over there and stuff like that? And AJ Styles came to my mind. And when I see him turn up in the office earlier in the show in the suit, I thought this was him asking one more time. And then it's like, oh yeah, I'm off there now. I just have to find something else. And then, TNA, he's there. Yeah. And I thought, that would be brilliant. Like, this is like TNA's first son. Like, let him go back and it'll be great. But why I can't get invested in this too tough is because Cody's just gonna beat him again. Like, AJ Styles, unfortunately, we're not living in a world where he's going to beat Cody. And now I'm very sure Cody isn't going to hold this title like for very, very long. I mean, I might even say he loses it at like SummerSlam. Yeah, but like, it's not gonna be to AJ Styles. So it's like, okay, cool. He looks vicious. He beat him up. The Styles clash off the steps was great, but then hopefully not as soon as Clash. If they walk into Clash and then he just loses again, it's going to be like, well, now what?
True.
So yeah,
very, very true. What's interesting is, as well, we now have this revelation that came out a few days ago that, apparently it was actually Mark Henry's decision for him not to beat John Cena all those years ago. He was talking about, how Cody and AJ basically, even by actions and everything, kind of replicated everything that, he and John Cena did back then and whatnot, but then also revealed that, it was his decision to not become champion by beating John Cena, alluding to the fact that, he didn't really want to kind of put that much pressure on himself, didn't want to do having to be called upon day in, day out, blah, and all that kind of stuff. Gerard, how much of a revelation is that for us? And what did it make you think when you found out? Because for so many years, we've all been upset that this iconic moment of him doing the fake retirement didn't end up with him winning the championship. It kind of almost, to many people, it almost felt like the fake retirement was pointless. How does it now feel now that Mark Henry's revealed that it was his decision?
It tells us what Mark Henry's been telling us for the last few years, which is he's really all about the business. Right. He's all about giving back. And he saw that it made more sense for John Cena and his run to be able to continue and not be interrupted by him. That says a lot. And there are a lot of veterans that wouldn't necessarily do that if they get the opportunity to win a championship. I shouldn't bring up names. That's probably not the most professional thing to do. But if you think back to shortly after WrestleMania 18, you'll probably know where I'm going. WrestleMania 18 had two very interesting moments. One, it was Hogan versus The Rock in that crazy main event. And then after that, Triple H wins the Undisputed Championship from Chris Jericho. A month later, he fights a certain veteran. And yeah, we know how that ended. Not all veterans make the decision to do what's best for the business as opposed to what's best for themselves. Mark Henry has proven over the years that he really is about building the business for the future and contributing in that way. And so I hope, if anything, it will remind people that there are moments in this business, especially in WWE, where the wrestlers do get the opportunity to have some degree of say-so in terms of how things go. And for Mark Henry to make that particular decision when he was certainly, you could argue, at the height of his popularity, and he could have said, let's put the belt on me and let me give it a run. He said, no, not going to do that. That says an awful lot about Mark Henry.
For sure. Going back to what Mick said about this whole thing with AJ, I think there's still a possibility it could lead to AJ making an appearance in in TNA. TNA, of course, is the real house that AJ Styles built.
Yes.
And Slammiversary is in July.
It is.
There's still time for him to kind of maybe lose to Cody Rhodes, kind of do this whole, okay, well, you know, you've had your second chance. You blew that as well.
Mm-hmm.
You're gone. Or he feels as though he can't do it anymore. And then he turns up maybe at Slammiversary. If we're doing this whole TNA exchange thing, it's still possible. It's still possible. Other news about Mark Henry is that he has parted ways with AEW. Gerard, what are the possibilities for Mark Henry right now?
I think the possibilities are endless. You know, I think often we think about, well, the other place for him to go would be WWE. But I think what Mark Henry has done, he's proven to be an amazing scout of talent. He's proven to kind of be that uncle in the industry that, you know, gives sound and sage advice to all who will listen. He has an affinity towards seeing Black stars do very, very well. And so, you know, it lends himself to being able to do multiple things. He could appear in WWE if he wanted to, or he could spend some time really nurturing and molding the next generation on the independent circuit, which I think is a great possibility. You know, this past weekend, he showed up over at MLW at their Battle Riot, strangely enough, here in Atlanta. Him and Teddy Long is part of that big match for the control of the Beaumaye Fight Club between AJ Francis and Alex Kane. An incredible match, an incredible showing. I know at the end of the month, he'll be with All Caribbean Wrestling in both the Bahamas and Jamaica. I think he's really creating a space and a legacy for himself that honestly not a lot of Black stars have had a chance to do. It's much like we see in other sports. Many kind of look to be the face of the brand in front in terms of winning championships and those kinds of things. But really a lot of the power moves once you become a head coach, or once you become an owner, or once you become a decision maker behind the curtain and behind the cameras. And so I think he has the opportunity to really influence in a lot of places. I mean, think about it. We've talked about it before. You know, we don't have our women's tag team champions right now, Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill, without a Mark Henry. We don't have right now one of the most talked about ring announcers of all time being Samantha Irvin without Mark Henry. So that being able to scout talent and be able to help place them in certain places is mammoth. It's monumental. And so I think he has a chance to build a legacy that no other Black wrestler before him has done in terms of being able to give back to the business in this way.
For sure. You know, you mentioned Mark Henry working with All Caribbean Wrestling. We also know that a certain Patrick Clark is also a part of all of that as well, or the next couple of shows. Yeah. Mark Henry has also kind of come out a week or two ago, you know, kind of punching for Patrick Clark to be given a possible second chance. Mex, what are your thoughts on the possibility of a Mark Henry nurturing Patrick Clark back to the WWE, or back to TV, at least if it's not the WWE itself? What's the thought process here?
Yeah, it's funny that you put it like that, because I think that's exactly what it's going to take. Almost a character reference, like someone vouching for this person. Someone's almost like, well, if something goes, you know, the wrong way when we do this, it's on you, sort of thing. And you'd like to think nothing new will go wrong. But again, you know, the bigger issue why none of the big players will probably take the gamble is because of, you know, the likes of just social media reactions in shows, things like that, things that can derail the product ultimately. So those are probably the reasons as to why people wouldn't want to take the gamble. But yeah, it's if a Mark Henry came in, maybe more so to like say a TNA than maybe a WWE, and then they could kind of say, look, I'm gonna go and come in there. He'll be my guy. He'll sit under me. We'll kind of manage the situation, play it by ear. Then it'll be the likes of maybe the AEWs and the WWEs that watch on, maybe give it 6 months to a year. How's it gone? Reassess and see. All right, he seems to have rehabilitated within himself. The crowd seem expecting of him. Can we turn this into money? That would be the most important question for them all. And then they go from there. But I think definitely like someone of stature is going to need to kind of be the voice and the reference to get him back into the business. It won't just happen with him turning up in his farm garb as he has been.
For sure. It's nice to see that there is someone that is willing to kind of step out and speak out for someone who, as soon as his name's mentioned, it's this reaction, that reaction, negative, this, negative, that, going back to his past and all the rest of it. It's nice to see someone like Mark Henry who has, as Gerard said, reeled off the names, Samantha, Jade, Bianca, who has been there, and everyone has a lot of respect for Mark Henry. So to see him kind of vouch for Patrick Clark in this moment is promising for Clark. The other thing I want to talk about as well, there's been a lot of contract talk and releasing and contracts not being re-signed and people leaving and where they're going next. One of them is Ricochet. This was a surprise to me, but at the same time, contracts come and go. And, something that Gerard said, I think it was last week on WWT, we're now starting to hear about this contract stuff all the time, whereas it's nothing new. So we've got the likes of Chad Gable, Ricochet. We all know about Becky Lynch's contract ending. This stuff happens. But Gerard, what is there a possibility, because even Will Ospreay has chimed in on this, is there a possibility of Ricochet leaving the WWE?
Absolutely not. No. I want to be clear with people. I think, as a community, we have to kind of start thinking bigger. And I think part of the challenge of where many wrestling fans are is you can sort of kind of tell who's never worked in a corporate setting before. Because when contracts are up for renewal, they're not a matter of public knowledge. They're just not. Somebody somewhere has to make them public, and the negotiations usually aren't going to happen publicly. And so in this, I think there's probably more of a concern about, will people stay in WWE if this conversation is happening 5 years ago? But where we are right now with the new regime, with the boatloads of money in WWE, with the overwhelming success that's happening in WWE, the only people that are leaving are people that absolutely positively just can't stand it anymore. And those are very few and far between. WWE isn't even really releasing people like that anymore. They're letting people's contracts just run out. And in the case of what we saw about a month or so ago with the artist formerly known as Scripps, he let us know ahead of time, and boom, then he was free to kind of do whatever it was that he wanted to do. I think all of these people, because there's been a number of them. It was Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins and Damian Priest, and all these people have re-signed. They're all going to they've probably already re-signed and just not made the info public. WWE is not letting any major star go. They don't have to. They've got, there's no other wrestling company that's going to offer the amount of money that WWE has the potential to offer. So I think Ricochet, who has been featured rather prominently, I think these last 6 months, we've talked before about Ricochet and where he's been on the card. He's been very prominently featured easily over these last 6 months. Current speed champion. The match he had with Braun last night and the placement of that was fantastic. This work he's been doing with Ilya Dragunov has been amazing. He's fine. Chad Gable's fine. All these people are fine. I'm not falling for it. I would even go so far as to say Becky Lynch has re-signed. We just don't know it yet. And she's going home to chill, and she's being paid to chill. She's earned it. She deserves it. Nobody needs to know until she shows back up on WWE television.
Very, very true. But Mex, I'm going to ask you this. Would Ricochet be better off in AEW, especially with the style that they've got going on, with Ospreay being there, and obviously the way he's showcased right now? Are we still kind of, I guess the other question is, on top of that is, are we still waiting for WWE to really show us what Ricochet can do?
Just to chime in firstly on the contract situation, yeah. A lot of these guys and girls now are learning the tricks of the trade. They are working themselves into a position where they're not signing contracts. WWE obviously wants to keep them. WWE starts pushing them, showing them what we can turn you into, what we can do with you, i.e. Chad Gable, i.e. Drew McIntyre just before WrestleMania, giving them big spots, lots of stuff to do. They then see, okay, cool. And that helps them with leverage to negotiate a good contract. Chad Gable's contract runs out on Friday. There is no way Chad Gable's leaving the company. He's in one of the biggest storylines that they have right now. He's not leaving. Not going anywhere. But he's going to fill his pocket with money because he knows how valuable he is. Otherwise, if they let him leave, he walks into Dynamite on Wednesday next week. They know that. So, yeah. Becky Lynch on that front, because you mentioned it, Gerard, they obviously have put a bunch of people recently into the alumni section of the company, the likes of Scripps and all these people that have left. Becky Lynch isn't in the alumni section on the website.
She's still very much featured on the website as active roster.
Right. Now, to your question, Adrian, as to is it better off for him, right? Just as you guys were talking, I thought, cool, let me back this up. So it's almost like I knew the question was going to come. And I make his ceiling, the comparison. Well, firstly, Ospreay can say that because Ospreay and Ricochet go way back, right?
Of course.
But Ospreay isn't giving up his spot for Ricochet, is he?
No.
So, it's all, as much as they're probably friends and have a great relationship, it's lip service because, maybe he's just trying to get his friend a better deal, a better, slice of the cake, which is fine. But he's not giving up his spot for Ricochet. So, we move on from there. And I'm comparing Ricochet's AEW ceiling, if he was to go there right now, to the likes of a Kyle O'Reilly that we've just seen return. Someone that will be used in great spots, have championship matches thrown at their feet, mid-card championship matches, by the way, to go and put on great matches, but ultimately not come out on top and win them. Kyle O'Reilly, I've just checked, has had 12 matches since he's returned to AEW this year. Obviously, he's been off for a long time. He's won 7 of them. He's lost all the championship matches. Every single championship match, and one of them was a number 1 contenders match he was involved in, that gauntlet the other day. He's lost all of them. So it's fine that he can beat Jordan Cruz on Rampage. Respectfully, if you guys could tell me who Jordan Cruz is that I'm looking at right now. But when it's time for the big one, he's not winning it. And we can predict that he probably isn't going to win a title anytime soon, at least. And when he does, it is probably akin to a mid-card title. Ricochet has won an Intercontinental. He has won a United States Championship. He's currently the Speed Championship, which is an exclusive Twitter thing. So will he be better off in AEW? No. He won't be. He'll go there. He'll have some terrific matches. Yes, more chains will come off. And people think he'll go and be doing some super crazy stuff, which he may, but he may still do it sparingly because Ricochet isn't the Ricochet that we were watching X amount of years ago with Dragon Gate and New Japan and stuff. He's an aging man. As much as he doesn't look it, he's an aging man. So he can't be doing the crazy stuff. So it's all well and good, like, oh, this person's gonna go up there. Look, people have stopped going to AEW because they can see the mid card is jam-packed, stacked. Like, so unless I'm going in there to be a world champion contender from day one, or a Carter situation, which they're going to literally give me the title on my arrival, a title on my arrival, there's nothing. And there's another big thing that's gonna ever hold him back. Not necessarily hold him back, but he has to consider, and that's Samantha Irvin. Like, why would you leave your current setup with your missus to be having the time of her career right now, like, to go and be just giving us great matches with no outcome, Kyle O'Reilly and on us? Like, nah.
That answers the question, and that, folks, is the end of the show. On
the other side, though, can I add one thing?
Yeah, go.
It has been great this past week to see the resurgence of Leo Rush on AEW.
Yes.
He was in the gauntlet. He was great. He had a great match on Collision with Roderick Strong.
Yes.
Yeah, great match. Like, Leo Rush just has so much to offer. And I saw Dave Meltzer. Dave Meltzer, I think, said the other day that AEW don't need any more guys, but if there's anyone to sign, it's Leo Rush, just because he's so different from everyone else. He would still kind of face these same issues we just discussed with the likes of a Ricochet, but I just felt like, because there was a lot of obviously unfinished business there. He spoke trying to defend one of our own kind of thing, and kind of felt the wrath of the office as well, and left, and all of that kind of stuff. So it was good to kind of just see him back in the fray, and just doing what he's great at on a great stage.
No, I'm glad you mentioned it, man. I will always say, for me, I think Leo Rush is literally one of the best wrestlers in every aspect that we judge our wrestlers by: mic skills, in-ring ability, charisma, connection with the crowd, all of that. This guy ticks every single box. The only unfortunate is the injuries, and then, you know, the rumblings of we don't know what's true and what's not, but all the backstage dramas, or politics, I guess is the safer word to use. But for me, seeing Leo Rush is brilliant, and I'm glad it's not a thing where he signed again or re-signed. He's still kind of free to do his own thing and still make a decision and all that kind of thing. But I do really want to see this guy. There's still so much time for him to do, you know, so much. And I wish I could see it play out on TV and him kind of gain that kind of status in that way. But to see Leo Rush again, yeah, man, it was a nice surprise to see him come out in that gauntlet and then to have that match with Roderick Strong. Time has gone from us, but there is one last thing I do want to talk about. We mentioned this gauntlet match. We know Will Ospreay versus Swerve is imminent. Gerard, just give me your thoughts on this. It's happening at Forbidden Door. We've had the talk of Forbidden Door not being used correctly and all the rest of it. Can you help us make sense of this?
No.
Good night, everybody. Good night.
No. You know, here's what we've talked extensively, that we had the expectation of Ospreay, Swerve at All In London. And our thoughts were just last week when Ospreay won the International Championship. Okay, Ospreay can do all these things with the International Championship. Swerve may have a lengthy run now because Ospreay is clearly occupied. None of us saw Ospreay leaving Dynamite as the #1 contender, getting a shot at Forbidden Door. Maybe they thought that maybe they forgot that Ospreay signed to AEW and they still think he's part of New Japan or something, so that they can do this Forbidden Door New Japan. I don't know, but the whole idea of Forbidden Door and your world champion is fighting somebody from in the company makes absolutely no sense at all. Couple that with you win a title on Sunday, and now you're entered in the opportunity to win another title 3 days later. You haven't even defended your championship. How do you defend your championship after you become the #1 contender to another championship. Like, what are we doing? And so now I'm concerned that Swerve Strickland is on the Willow Nightingale plan, which is you've got less than 30 days, sir, to relish your world. So he's doing all these great media appearances, all the things, because it's hard for me to believe at this point that the undefeated, unbeatable Will Ospreay, who didn't lose to Takeshita, who didn't lose to Bryan Danielson, who didn't lose both gauntlet matches, who just won an international championship, is all of a sudden going to be stopped by your world champion, which took 2 years to win the title. Swerve, I'm glad that you are the first African-American world champion, but you were inspired by Kofi, who at least got to hold the title for 6 months. Now, we lost the title in 9 seconds, but he held the title for 6 months. I'm concerned. I'm very concerned because I don't see how this works. If Swerve wins this match, I mean, that'd be great for Swerve, but I imagine there's going to be a rematch at All In. And Ospreay potentially wins it there. This is not a knock to Swerve, but I don't see Swerve being the guy to defeat. I mean, they have made Ospreay. This is an old video game reference, so sue me, but they've made Ospreay Mike Tyson of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out at this point. Like, they've made him unbeatable. They've made him unbeatable. So to think that Swerve, who in comparison you gave Claudio, you gave Christian, and now he gets Roderick Strong, that's not Bryan Danielson. That's not Takeshita. Like, so I don't feel good about this at all.
Like I said in the group, it's not going to happen because the crowd are very hot on him, but don't make us hate Ospreay.
Right.
Like, don't overdo it. Let's keep it real. Like, him winning a title and then by Wednesday he was the #1 contender of another title is wild.
They didn't do that for
unprecedented. No, it is wild. It's very, very wild.
Has that ever happened before? Has that ever happened?
No.
Not that I can remember. It's almost like they forgot he had just won the international title.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like, okay, now we're here. And I mean, that's what I think happens is Swerve gets the win at Forbidden Door. I think they're gonna have that. Is it the Tiger Driver situation where Ospreay has retired that move, said he wouldn't use it to put people away, and I think we might get Swerve doing the Tiger Driver to beat Ospreay, to kind of give Swerve some edge, give us some story going into what will be a rematch, probably at All In, probably Ospreay picking up the title. But I just feel like don't overdo it. And again, Swerve isn't feeling like he carries himself like the champion, like the top guy, but he's not being booked as one. Why? I can't remember who he wrestled now last week on Dynamite. But why is he wrestling in the middle of the show?
Right.
Why is my champion not in the main event? Or at least, or at least in the first match or something. Like, we watched Raw yesterday, right? And I would say to an extent, Judgment Day got over. They're all over Raw, maybe too much in some aspects. But it all built to the main man, Damian Priest, wrestling his match in the main event.
Right.
And WWE are working probably more overtime to make Damian Priest look like the guy than Swerve. Swerve is already there. We already got the cool factor. We all believe in Swerve. But that is where the champion should be. Like, Swerve has wrestled, I think it was the week after he won the title, he wasn't on Dynamite, or he wrestled in the second match or the card or something like that.
He showed up in the second segment after Trent Beretta and Orange Cassidy.
Yes, that's right.
Opened the show after he just wins the world title on the weekend. Then the next week he was on Collision, opened the show. it's like placement, perception. We keep coming back to
Right.
this. Like,
Right.
it's everything. Like, you want me to believe this is the top guy. He's holding the belt, okay. But I see what you're doing from my brothers Okada and Ospreay. It's different. Like, it's different. Like, I don't feel like you're treating him like the AEW World Champion. Like Gerard said, this MJF was on his own time. He was being treated so differently. Perception of him was real, although yes, his last storyline damaged that somewhat. But I just don't know what you guys are doing. Like, it's almost like you're putting him on ice while you're heating up Ospreay and others. Like, it's not great, man.
And here's the thing: like, it's not a surprise that they're putting the Rockets on Ospreay. It's not a surprise that, with Swerve being a champion, even when Joe was the champion, it kind of felt we had this transitional feel the whole time. Both of them have done as great as they possibly can. It's guaranteed they're going to have great matches, great defenses, and all the rest of it. But we know the eventual story is, whether it be Ospreay or Okada, they're going to be the champion. They're going to be the next big champion. And right now, it's looking like it's Ospreay more than Okada. And it's fine. We get to All In. We go back to London. 80 to 90,000 people in the crowd. Ospreay becomes AEW champion. No problem whatsoever. No issue. My issue is this level of booking to where both guys can look bad. There was no point whatsoever in Ospreay winning the international championship. No point whatsoever. If this is what you're going to do the following week.
Right.
Ospreay gave some big rah-rah speech about taking the international championship here, there, and everywhere, calling it the Forbidden Door Championship. All right, no problem. It helped made sense of that, So now I'm expecting to see him in, CMLL, see him in Japan, turn up in Rev Pro with the international championship, take on a few guys, maybe even lose it to someone in a different promotion in 3 months' time or 2 months, whatever it is. Fine, no problem. Then he jumps on to the AEW championship. No problem whatsoever. But this whole thing now has kind of put us in a position where we're like, all right, this is a little too much. This whole winning the championship, not defending it, then becoming number one contender to a bigger championship, the championship. Make it make sense. Just make it make sense. And we've got this whole, the potential. And I think it's going to be very difficult, but still the potential of the AEW faithful disliking Will Ospreay, and whether it be disliking Ospreay himself or just the way he's being booked, it's still kind of, it's dangerous. It's worrying. That's the word I'm looking for. It's worrying because it doesn't need to happen this way. We're not John Cena back in the day or Roman Reigns when WWE were trying their hardest to make him their main guy. This guy is the guy of the people. You don't need to do anything. He could have come out and won the championship on his first night against Samoa Joe if they really wanted to. No one would argue. No problem. But to do all of this, him winning these gauntlet matches, being involved is fine. Him winning them.
This is the thing. The gauntlet matches, he doesn't even have to be pinned. He can be involved and he doesn't even have to be pinned.
Right.
Like, so it won't like necessarily be like a loss like that. Like, we knew Swerve was always going to fight this uphill battle because Ospreay is Ospreay and we can't blame Ospreay. I'm a massive fan of Ospreay. I'm here for Ospreay becoming champion, if they done it correctly, booking correctly. But give the champion, and this isn't just because it's Swerve, this could be with anyone, give them a fighting chance. Give them a fighting chance to, like we always said. So by the time we're at All In, if it's going to be Ospreay versus Swerve, it's like, who's actually going to leave with the title? It's not a foregone conclusion.
Right.
But if you're not giving the situation, giving the current world champion a fighting chance, booking him in the middle of shows, like, I don't get it.
And I'm not really for... With this situation, I guess, maybe in general, I'm not really for the big match being a rematch.
Right.
Yeah.
You're giving us the match too early. It's like, you know, the kind of thing that we've been saying about Jade and Bianca. Don't put them together straight away. Build up whatever you got to build up for each of them. The way that they're doing it now is not what we expected, but it's working. And when we get to when they eventually come together and have a clash and blah blah blah, it's at WrestleMania, and we go for it. It's going to be undeniable. It's going to be special because we've been waiting for it. This, yeah, I just don't get it. I just don't get it. It's actually pointless. It's like completely pointless how it's gone, and it's just been the last 2-3 weeks where it's just kind of just like spiraled out of control, and I don't know how they. I don't know if it's possible to even save it. I don't know. It's just crazy. It's just crazy booking. It seems to be a thing with AEW of these past year, but everyone's calling them out for it at the moment. It seems to be happening all over the place. You know what I mean? I saw, who was it? Vince Russo went on the maddest rant a couple of days ago about this whole thing. Well, not even just that specifically, but AEW in general, their booking and all this kind of stuff. And everyone's having something to say, and I think that's detrimental to AEW in a very big way. And it's going to affect, you know, TV deals and all of that, which is, you know, the important part. So, and then we're talking about the attendance, and let's not even go. We got to finish. We got to finish. We could go on forever. But yeah, man, it's crazy. Again, we're expecting to see an absolute banger of a match between Swerve and Ospreay. That's almost guaranteed. Whatever the outcome is, however it ends, whether it ends with one person winning, it being a no contest, whatever, we're going to get an absolute banger of a match between the two of them. But there are too many things that it's detrimental to: the Forbidden Door, the wrestlers themselves, the championships that they're holding. That it's just madness.
Even the Forbidden Door aspect that Gerard was mentioning. To be honest, I'd rather it be two AEW guys, because like I'll believe it more. I'm invested in it more than AEW versus New Japan, when we just know whoever they put in front of us from New Japan's not going to win. But yeah, it still kind of messes up the entire idea of this is meant to be kind of this versus this sort of thing. The only other thing that they could do to really throw a spanner in the works in regards to this is if this is some type of amalgamation of the two titles, the international title and the world title, which some people have kind of said that they could be possibly doing, but we just have to wait and see.
The other thing that actually hit me as you guys were talking was time limit draw.
No, that's just a waste.
It is a waste, but it goes the time limit, and it's the perfect setup for the rematch.
Yeah.
Either way, I
don't give me 60 minutes on a pay-per-view of these two. Like, and there's no outcome.
They'll do it.
It's a possibility. It's happened. We've done it with Bryan Danielson. Who did he face again?
Hangman.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They did it.
The best thing, if Swerve is going to lose at All In to Ospreay, Swerve has to beat him now. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the least you can give Swerve.
I agree.
Give him a clean win over Ospreay now. Stop Ospreay in his tracks. Ospreay has to regroup, find himself by August, and then if you're going to do it in August, cool, whatever.
Yeah.
But let's not fandangle the finish of this, and then we get to August, and then he beats him. That won't be good. I think a lot of people have something to say on that, even in hindsight.
Yeah, it's gonna be a crazy few weeks, crazy few months. But this is what keeps us in our seats and coming back every single week, and enough to talk about.
That's right.
With that said, this week is over. You have been watching WrstlXtra on the WrestleManiac UK YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to make sure you see us every single Tuesday, and to also see when this guy Mex puts out all of his reactions to WWE, AEW, everything else in between. Check out, I believe it's the latest video of Mex talking about Mercedes Moné's quote about her being the greatest women's wrestler of all time. Very interesting thoughts from Mex. And you'll see a feature from a certain Gerard Bonner and a certain A Dazzle wiping his nose and coughing his head off. But that part's not important. Don't forget, you can also find Mex with the guys on the Wrestling's YouTube channel as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Their podcast every week and other interesting things in between. You can also see Mex on Gorilla Position as well. WWEGP on Instagram, Gorilla Position on YouTube. You can find this guy, Gerard Bonner, on all things Bonafide. Oh my gosh, let me go back. You can find Mex on Instagram, on WrestleManiac UK, WrestleManiac.uk on X. You can find this guy, yeah, that guy, Gerard Bonner, on all things Bonafide. You can also find him on his own show, The Faction Show, as well as WWT Live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You can also find Gerard doing all of his commentary and broadcasting specialities with All Caribbean Wrestling. Arshay Wrestling, their show's coming up very soon. I think it's in 2 weeks, week and a half.
June 22nd, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Also with Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling, Nightmare Factory, IWE, and everything else in between. Southern Honor Wrestling, I can't forget that one. I love that place. You can also find him here with us and with me, the guy they call A Dazzle. You can find me on Black Wrestling Alliance on Instagram, BWA Dazzle on X. I need to find a way to shorten that whole outro because my throat is so dry. I gotta go. People, thank you for your time, and we will see you again next week.